5 miles off the coast of Massachusetts, on Martha's Vineyard, Polly Hill grows a garden. In it are open fields, stone walls, and approximately 2,000 plant taxa, including azaleas, rhododendron, conifers, stewartia, holly, and magnolias. In the beginning, her goal for the garden was simple: expand the vineyard's list of plants. Her philosophy: experiment and document. Her approach: grow everything from seed.
The importance of the seeds that you select to use is quite obvious, because the plant will be only as good as its seed. And in any batch of seed, or just like any batch of people, there's a few that stand out.
Using this simple approach for the past 40 years, Polly has given to the vineyard plant introductions, a showplace of a garden, and an enduring bond among plants, people, and the land.
The fact that I wanted to do it, I think it was basic love of the land. And also the fact that Martha's Vineyard was poverty-stricken horticulturally. There was nothing growing here of interest, and my interest had been piqued by great gardens in Delaware and Pennsylvania, like Longwood. And I had taken all those courses to learn about all those plants. So why not see if they will grow here? I think it was curiosity and a kind of a yen to do something for the land. It was my land to cope with. I had to do well by it.
To me, she's a combination of the scientist and the artist.
Hi, Catbird.
And the garden is the perfect expression for that kind of personality, someone that understands detail, someone that understands process, but also someone that sees the beauty in everything in life and understands the whole concept of sense of place, that this is just not a garden of plants, but it's a garden on Martha's Vineyard.
Graft from.
You know, whenever I'm here, I always go around with Polly and we look at the plants, we talk about them. I see these plants in different ways each time, so it's a new experience. You know, every tour is a new tour, even though it's the same tour, because it's a different season, the lighting's different, you know, the plants are under different growing conditions, so every tour is a new tour.
Now this, if it's correctly named, is Chonsky, and it's called a small tree in all the literature. I don't call that a small tree, and it's just growing like mad.
Well, now how long have you had it there?
That was a seed in '59.
'59, so...
It's not a small tree.
It isn't.
You know, especially for the vineyard, because things tend to be squat.
Yeah. After my last visit in June, I said, Polly, you really have created a peaceable kingdom here. And it went beyond the plant collection. The way that there would be in LA a highly structured planting of trees, 2 rows of trees, but then to end in a simple sculpture of rock and trees, and just the positioning of those things, going beyond just the collection.
I knew nothing about landscape architecture, but I had this place, and the walls were here, and the buildings were here. And that's your design. All you need to do is clear off the walls and decide what to do next. Well, this is called, Cornus cusa, the Japanese oriental dogwood. This particular one is called Blue Shadow. It's one of my favorites for 2 reasons. It's very, very healthy, and it's almost immune to that discula disease that has so many of the dogwoods. And it's a very floriferous, and it's a great seed producer, and it's healthy. I have azaleas named for all the family, and Julian didn't like the early azalea colors that were coming out. He said, I like white flowers. I like big white flowers. So this is the biggest white flower I have, and it's named Julian Hill. And now it's rather well known, not because of any difference from any other magnolia, but because of the fact that it's growing so far north. It has this distinction, which I don't know that all magnolia macrophyllus have. I don't believe they do, but I don't know it. In 9 years, this bloomed from seed. The books say 20. So in 9 years, this bloomed from seed, and I took that seed and planted them, and I have trees on the place, again, that bloomed in 9 years. So that is a distinction. This is just a great attraction to young and old. They love this tree. They love being able to get right in it, on it. And they like the size of it. It's just too tropical for words for Martha's Vineyard. Come here in January and imagine seeing a tree like that.
So you're in this situation where you have all of these plants which have no business growing here, either in terms of the climate or the soil or where they're from, and you can grow them.
SABE, that goes with the label. Sino-American Botanical Expedition, one of the early ones into China.
Polly took it upon herself to experiment in the idea that certain plants grow in a certain range, and they don't grow out of that range, and it would be silly to try that. And Polly's thought was, well, no, we'll grow them from seed, and we'll see if we can't extend their range, which she has done.
They thought Malus baccata didn't grow, so they thought maybe they had a new one.
I mean, when I started with Polly, I came here, and I had been in more the design end of the plant business, where you go out and you buy plants, and you buy the biggest ones you can, and you bring them and you plant them, and then you water them and take care of them. And I came and started working with Polly, and Polly informed me that we grow everything from seed. And some seeds take years to germinate, and that it was a very different time frame.
And blooms in June.
And I should get used to it.
What are the flowers like?
I haven't seen them yet. How old is it?
71. 1971. Come on.
24 years.
24, you're old enough.
I think it's big enough, don't you, to have flowers?
Yeah.
Well, she has a very humble concept of time. You come here and you see a plant that you like, she'll say, well, have some seeds. You can grow your own. Take a seed off of a stewardia, wait for it to sprout for 2 years, and wait 5 years for it to be this tall. It's just a very liberated sense of time that she has.
And here's what people call the banana plant. This is your Julian Hill magnolia, a young one. I think that's wonderful. I like dealing with seedlings. I like transplanting little tiny plants and making them comfortable and moving them on, so that I enjoy that early stage. It's like little children. One made it. That's what I think. I think they're just aborted. It's more interesting to me to see how they develop from that time, too. If you buy them, the nurseryman's had all that early stage, and all you get is a teenager or something. So I think that's part of the reason I don't mind the time involved, because I'm doing what I find pleasurable.
Polly's Arboretum was a sheep farm when her mother bought the property in 1926. In 1957, Polly began managing the farm with her husband, Julian Hill. He was an organic chemist at DuPont and one of the inventors of nylon. She was 50 years old and the mother of 3. Early Early on, she realized she needed a nursery for her young plants and a specially prepared place, nicknamed the Playpen by her family because of all the time she spent there, where she could experiment with her azaleas and rhododendrons.
I looked at the fields we had, and this was the most remote. So a friend was with me, and I said, how wide do you think I should make it? He said, well, your path has to be 6 feet. So then we made about 13 feet on either side of the path to get a good, deep border. There we are. There's the tree straight ahead. That is Stewardia, a hybrid I call Skyrocket. It's a cross of 2 species, Monodelpha and Coriana. And I grew it from seed, supposedly from Coriana. Here's 3 Stewardia leaves. This with a crenate edge is Coriana. This is the first one we looked at. It's a hybrid. And it's a hybrid of this one that has hardly any and doesn't have that joining effect of the venation. See, the venation is scalloped at the edge. They call that anastomosing. This is the American oveda. These 2 are oriental. So anyway, this one is the one I like best because of the flower. The flower has the white petals, has purple stamens, and on top of the stamens it has blue anthers. And on each petal, on each flower, there's one little streak of crimson in the petal. So I wish, I see one down here. Most people in this area haven't seen it because it doesn't grow as far north as this. And they're quite astonished to see it in flower. It seemed to be nice and sheltered there and made the grade from seed. I was sent, I think, 9 seed. Took 29 years to flower, and then it flowered. And the seeds are very difficult to make grow. And people are doing studies, and I had a young man from Florida say, please send me some seeds so I can study what makes them flower. He said, if I get them to grow, I'll give you a plant, and I have yet to see it. So anyway, Stewardia, Malacodendron, cultivar Delmarva. I think that's a very lovely plant.
One of the things that makes landscape magical is the way that plants mark time passing and the cyclical nature of time, the seasonal things that you come back to over and over again. Like right by the barn, there's the most extraordinary Stewardia, which is a tree that blooms in summer here, and it's right at a point when you drive by, you can look in the driveway and see it, and it's about 3 weeks that you go by, and it's just a riveting presence, and then it just kind of dissipates, and the whole scene changes and becomes quiet, and something else pops up.
My interest in rhododendron and azaleas was sparked by Dr. Rokujo, who was a rhododendron breeder in Japan, and we had begun corresponding since 1956 when I took a trip to Japan with Jeff. I was introduced to him by Dr. Seibert of Longwood Gardens, and he sent me seeds that he thought would interest me because I would like to see ground cover, low-growing azaleas, which we did not have in this country at that time. And he had in his garden a plant of Nakaharai, a species endemic to Taiwan, which I have several examples further along, but this is one of the hybrids he made with that species. You see, the leaves are small, tight, the thing is low, compact, compared to this more usual azalea size, where the leaves are larger, the branching is more open, the flowers are larger perhaps. But this I call pink pancake because it's really as flat as they come. This has been here for almost 30 years now, so of course it's grown up a bit. And when it sticks out big shoots, we nip them off. But we have not changed the basic habit of the plant by that pruning. It's been a tidying operation. And over here is another one. This one I call Michael Hill. It's the best creeping one I have. It travels. The young shoots root down in the ground, and it moves on getting new food, so the middle doesn't wear out. It's very late blooming. This is the last series of azaleas to bloom. I have a good many of the Robin Hills going by now, and they were considered fairly late. But these North Tisburys, which are my azaleas, are the latest group of all of the evergreen azaleas. The Mount Seven Star came to me through Ann Fielder of West Tisbury. A friend that they had made in Taiwan sent a little packet of seed from the mountain, Mount Seven Star, which has a Chinese name as well. And this came from Taiwan itself. It is the species itself, and it's one of my extraordinary introductions. I think I have a few that I can call extraordinary because they are basically valuable plants. This is another one of, I think, is my superior plants. This is another species, Yaku shimenum. And that Yaku comes from Yaku Island, south of Japan. The islands go down in the Pacific. Yaku Island is Yaku shima. So the species is Yaku shimenum. And this Rokujo sent me again as seed. And it's not a special anything, it's just that beautiful species, the way it grows. After it's flowered, all that soft, pale, whitish new growth comes up. So it's quite handsome again, like a second flowering. Well, let's go on down a little further and look at some of the other things. All the camellias on the left I raised from seed, and all these are my azaleas. I put the experiments on the right and any duplicates on the left. But here we come to the one that is more like the color of Mount Seven Star. But this is Joseph Hill, and it has Nakaharai as a parent. And you see that its habit is tight, low and late, and surprisingly hardy because Taiwan is down there, southern type country. But it used to belong to the mainland, and the hardy genes stayed with it. This is a plant that all the rhododendron people admire enormously because it's evergreen, it's got the low habit, and a good leaf. It's called Aureum, and it's supposed to have a yellow flower. See, it has no special indumentum on the back. That would, under a microscope, it would have scales, I think. But what's fascinating me is these flower buds that seem to be coming at this time of year. Either they're forming now for next year, or they're going to open very, very late. But I've never seen this happen before in June. It usually blooms quite early, like early May, and gets frozen. But that may be buds for next year. But wow, what a way to start. You learn something every day.
Polly's introductions include over 100 plants from her vineyard garden. The 20-acre grounds hold approximately 2,000 taxa, and Polly's need for organization led her to a detailed record-keeping system predating that of many larger professional gardens.
I think Russell Seibert was one of the first director of Longwood Gardens, was a great help to me because he let me, he probably had something to do with getting me on the original committee that of the ABGA. Before the ABGA was really a big institution, it was just beginning to form, American Association of Botanic Gardens and Arboretum. And I was on that committee that started the computerizing the records of all the gardens in North America, Canada, US, Mexico. That was a wonderful experience because just hobnobbing with all those people and listening to what their concerns were, you developed a, where does this come into me, you see? Where does this view apply to me? What can I use from this attitude what is their attitude toward this thing that's suddenly hitting me and so on. Wonderful, the people. It's the people. Come back to people and plants. Here's an empty field. How do I start? Well, Russell Seibert was with me, and he said, Polly, put 4 big beeches in the 4 corners and give them plenty of room. So I had learned that in Long Island there was a place where there were a big cut-leaf beech in the corner, and they had allowed 100 feet for it to grow. And it had already used up 150. So that's how you got to think ahead.
Curiosity has led Polly to experiment where others would not. If a plant can grow and thrive on the vineyard, then it has a place. If not, it's discarded. Visitors are surprised to find that there's no greenhouse, even though the Arboretum is in southern New England. Seeds collected by Polly or sent to her by friends all over the world are sown in the nursery, where all her plants get their start. Those that succeed are then transplanted to other locations in the Arboretum. Those that don't are removed. Both are carefully documented on paper, the dead file guiding her next experiment, the living file recording what has thrived on the vineyard.
There are 2 things that most gardens have if you go around visiting gardens, and one is water. And I don't have water except my little bird bath. And another is a silly folly, gazebo, what have you, and a little place to sit. And this area needed a place to sit. And when all these pines that were originally here died, I thought this is the place for my bower. And it had to look like the vineyard. You couldn't make it look like a Japanese something. You couldn't make it look like a British folly or a Victorian something, or these very fancy things that are coming now, you know, dressing up the garden. Well, I think we should sit down in this and give it a try because it's so comfortable. The men who built this tipped the bench right and put the back right, and it's very comfortable. So whenever my children want to talk to me about something, I say, meet me in the bower. So we sit out here and talk about it. And we have our backs to all the noise back home, and we have the nice quiet woods in front, and it's a nice place to talk. There's something beautiful. It's not quite open. Look at that blue, Jensen blue. Isn't that beautiful? I cannot have perfection, but I can know what perfection should be. I've learned that at Winter Tour and Longwood and wherever I go. I know what I'm aiming for. But we don't have it. We aim for it. We improve here and there. We pick up a piece here and there. But I think the first time a bird came and sat on one of my trees, I was so excited. Because it was a tree. It was something to sit on. It's been about so hot. There was a bird sitting on my tree. Well, I felt I had grown up somehow. It's one that has a lovely pink fruit. You like the goldenrod?
Polly has been recognized nationally by the American Horticultural Society, the National Council of State Garden Clubs, the American Rhododendron Society, the Holly Society of America, the Chicago, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania Horticultural Societies, and many others. In April 1997, she received the Garden Club of America Medal of Honor in recognition of her lifelong contribution to horticulture.
Having seen what I've seen and knowing the vineyard as I know it, I want to keep it and protect it and make it look right. I want a vineyard garden to look right on the vineyard. Right now, there's very little that is really mature. One generation garden isn't much of a garden, you know. It's the second generation when you really see a garden grow up. But some things have grown pretty fast on the island, so that I have big trees already. And enough for visitors to see that something is here. The dogwood allée is in bloom, and the big conifers tower over it, and things like that. But that is just an early beginning. If other people find it beautiful and restful and does something for their souls the way it's done for my soul, this is soul food, this whole place.
Polly's introductions have changed horticulture. We have benefited tremendously from people like Polly in this profession, a vocation. She's part of a group that saw beyond what was being grown and saw an opportunity. So there's a spirit of innovation, there's a spirit of experimentation, but also a vision to find better garden plants for people. And it's all part of using time as an asset rather than a liability where you're always running out of it. But when you're projecting out, you know, you're always planning, you're always fulfilling those plans and moving on. And then when you stop and turn around for a minute, you know, what do you see is this incredible accomplishment. It's not because you've been focusing backwards, it's because you've been focusing forward. And, you know, that's Polly. And that's something we should all bring into our lives.